So how do you increase ridership? We know the formula to increase ridership. This works in Santa Clara County, it works in every other county, every other country, which is frequent all-day service in areas where there are patterns of density, walkability, linearity, and proximity. And recognize that this is transit nerd speak, so I'm going to walk you through it. When we talk about frequency, frequency is very important. It is great for riders. In fact, people often think, especially people who don't ride transit, that speed is what you need. You need fast buses. But part of your overall trip time is the weight. And we find that, especially on shorter trips, that wait time makes up a much larger portion of the overall trip time. So frequency is very important. And we say it has a triple payoff. First, it's always coming soon, very convenient. When you make a transfer, if you're making a transfer to a route that operates at 15 minutes, you know your average wait is going to be 7.5 minutes, and you won't be waiting longer than 15, ideally. But if you're transferring to a 60-minute frequency route, that average wait is half an hour, and it could be up to 60 minutes. And if you think about your own life, who has 60 minutes to spare to build into your commute? Once you get to those sorts of situations, it really makes transit no longer a viable option for people. The other payoff is that frequent service creates reliability. If your bus breaks down, you know that another one will be along shortly. It won't impact your day too badly. Why all-day service? Well, one thing that we've noticed about VTA's system, and it may have something to do with the fact that our board of directors are people who work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, is that we deploy a lot of buses during the peak commute periods. But what we find is that our ridership, people who have low income, service level jobs, students, people in urban centers, they tend to travel at even rates throughout the day. If you think about that restaurant worker who's commuting in at lunch and going home at 11:30, or doing the morning shift, or a student traveling midday, you find that that peak service doesn't really work well for them. In fact, our highest ridership is at 2 in the afternoon, which is a part of the day when we have some of our lowest service levels. Our buses are most crowded in the afternoon and least crowded during the peak periods. So this tells us that we're missing our market. We need to change putting service out in the peak and put it evenly throughout the entire day. So density. This is simply more people near the bus route. Each of these bus routes cost the same for VTA to operate, but the more destinations, the more origins you have along the corridor, the more potential transit riders you have. If we're after ridership, we want to focus our services in areas that are more dense rather than less dense. Walkability is also important. If you look at the street network around the bus stop, and these are, say, half-mile radius, you can see that in the higher ridership grid scenario, you can walk to a lot more places from the bus stop, and the number of your viable destinations is much higher. In the suburban land use pattern with the curvilinear streets, the number of destinations you can get to is much lower. So dense urban areas are great for transit. Linearity. This is simply, are the places that the bus goes on a straight line? When they are, the bus can travel through all of them faster. It makes it more convenient for people on the bus, and it makes it less expensive for VTA to operate. Everybody wins in those situations. And finally, proximity. If your destinations are close together, it makes your trip shorter, more convenient, less expensive for VTA to operate as compared to when they're far apart.